Welcome back to Local Decision 2020. I'm Rusty Ray, and we're joined now by Representative Mary Kunesh-Podein of the DFL. She represents in the House of Representatives at the State House, but is running for State Senate out of District 41. I'm trying to keep it straight. I got it straight. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me to be here tonight.
And you have been a representative since 2016 or 2017?
Yep, I was elected first in 2016 and then soundly reelected in 2018. So I've been at the House for the last 4 years.
So why now run for the Senate?
Well, it's an incredible opportunity to serve a larger district for sure. When I want to create or push for legislation, I'm mostly just, looking at my constituents and then perhaps, greater Minnesota in general. But now I'll be able to work for both sides of my district, and I've been able to do some really good legislation so far and built good relationships both in the House and in the Senate, because with a split legislature like that, you have to have the support of our Republican folks in the Senate and our DFL folks. And with having built those relationships, I feel like I'd like to take those skills and some of the work that I've been doing into the Senate and then build more on what I've done already.
If I understand correctly, a couple of the things you've been working on is work towards an equal rights amendment. Am I right about that?
Yep.
And tell me more about that. It's something we've been talking with the candidates a lot this week as we've been doing this. So tell me more about that work and kind of where it stands right now for it.
Sure. So the Equal Rights Amendment is the ERA. And while we have it's passed at the federal level, we don't have that amendment, we don't have that statement of equality in the Minnesota Constitution. And that's what we want to do. And the bill that I carried wouldn't just put it into the Constitution, because that's a huge thing. When we amend our Constitution, either adding or detracting from it, that's something that everyone in the state has to have buy-in. So my bill actually would have put that question on the ballot for everybody to decide, should we include the statement, the Equal Rights Amendment statement in our Constitution.
And where did that bill get this year? I mean, did it get derailed by so many other things?
We didn't. We passed it in the House last session, 2019, and the Senate did not pass it. And so we were hoping to go back to this past year to the Senate and get that done, so we could get it on the ballot this fall. But of course, with COVID, we had that unexpected interruption. Well, now, knock on wood, I'm hoping I will get into the Senate. I'd love to carry it again in the Senate. Imagine if I could say, hey, I passed it in the House and I passed it in the Senate, and here it is, folks.
Well, in addition to all of that work that you just described, given the climate of everything that's happened in this calendar year, is the time to bring that to the Senate even more of a possibility, you feel like? Is the conversation there when it comes to rights for everybody and thinking about where we are as a society, is the time even more ripe for that, you think?
Oh, I definitely think so. And, I'm a DFLer. There's a very narrow, very small margin of majority of Republican in the Senate. And, should we prevail, the DFL prevail, we could take the majority. And then I think we have a really good chance of getting that on the ballot and letting our constituents decide.
You're also in public education for quite some time. What about education right now? Again, a lot of people are focusing on the immediate needs of COVID and all the adjustments that have happened and all the details of guidelines and things like that. But is there real work still to be done in education in Minnesota that can be done at St. Paul, but also addresses the needs of people that you talk to in your districts?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think we'll ever be done with education. Right. Of course, we want to make sure that we are adequately and fully funding our educational system. And with this pandemic, wow, what a reality check for everybody, especially when we are creating educational programs that have to be distance learning. and we want to talk about equity and access to information. And Greater Minnesota, we know, struggles with broadband and access to the internet, and this just creates that disparity. So many of our families and our students don't have devices, Chromebooks or iPads or whatever at home. It's now our responsibility as a state and as educators to make sure they have the resources that they need at home and can access it. So looking at how we can make internet available to everybody, just like any other utility, water, gas, electricity, those sort of things. But then I think we're going to really have a big job of going back and looking at how we will create a new education process after COVID as we re-enter the buildings and build those relationships again.
I was going to say, given all of that, and given if internet were most accessible by most everybody, more certainly than it is now, like you just said, looking at a new model, can we kind of adopt a lot of this that's been taken up in terms of distance learning, not necessarily, but the ideas and the way that education is happening? Maybe could that go towards a new model that funding could better support, or would be easier for the state to then adopt resources for? Is there a possibility of all of that adapting and changing over time, you think?
Oh, I absolutely think so. I think we have just entered a whole new era where there could very easily be more online learning, or at least kids that are struggling in school have opportunities outside of school now. You know, you used to have to find a mentor or an after-school program or stay after school and get extra help. Well, now there are all these programs and software that make it, you know, sort of fun and enjoyable for kids. And so that certainly could be a resource for after this COVID distance learning time.
We mentioned COVID really put the brakes on a lot of things going on in St. Paul, and started the year with a forecasted budget surplus, and now leaving the year with a massive deficit. Looking towards the budget process starting after the first of the year, what does the state need to do to address this, and can there be real changes made to revenue that's generated, revenue that's brought in, and then the way that that is spent in the state?
Yes, I think we have to be very diligent and very intentional when we are spending what monies that we have. We want to make sure that, first of all, that the health care, that folks continue to have access to good health care, especially if we're not familiar with COVID and it comes back and back and back again. So we have to make sure that we are still looking at how we're going to address health care. I think education is certainly going to be another one. How are we going to recreate our economic health in our state? When we look at agriculture, when we look at the hospitality businesses, when we look at all these other I want to say, like, businesses that have been like the bedrock of our communities, you know, small businesses that maintain our community members and provide the services so necessary to our community. How can we best address those so that we can rebuild it and have, you know, a well-rounded, comprehensive community?
Well, the federal government providing some support and some relief in the CARES Act money that the counties and then the cities were able to distribute to those businesses, and most of them got them. Some of them had to close before that money became available. But the state, that may not be the state's role, but as you're saying, looking forward, the state can put certain longer lasting things perhaps in place to support those small businesses. A lot of folks, Republicans especially, but a lot of folks will talk about the strength of the economy before all of this, and certainly there are indicators that that is the case. Obviously, that can't be argued. But looking forward, and should there be a turn with this COVID, whether it's a vaccine or some other kind of change, you're saying there are things that the state can do to shore that up on a community by community level.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at tax or tax relief or subsidies or grants or I mean, sometimes we might have to really look outside the box and be creative in how we're supporting our municipalities so that our municipalities can then support those businesses. So it really does have to be a comprehensive effort between the federal government, the state, like you said, county, and our cities, definitely.
it seemed like when all this began and the governor had to put some decisions into play and take some executive powers and things like that, there seemed to be a unified front in St. Paul, legislators lining up saying, let's do it,
Yeah.
take what you need, let's do it. As the summer's gone on, partisanship really has kind of appeared, and a lot of challenges to what the governor's doing. I think there should be a place for that. Where are you hearing from your constituents or the voters that you're talking to about partisanship and how that's played out and what that kind of presents to the public?
Yeah, I mean, we can't get away from partisanship in almost any topic these days. And I guess I look at it through the lens of my life experience and the people that I represent in my community. And the fact that the governor still is, with that we have gone back in and given him those kind of executive powers. And I do that willingly, because what a lot of people don't understand is that when a governor has those kind of executive powers, it opens up unbelievable funding streams, both from the federal government and within the state. You can shift funds around much easier, much quicker. And if you look at it, if I'm not mistaken, out of all of the states in the United States, there's only one state that does not, whose governor does not hold those executive powers at this time. I don't think it has done harm to our state. And, I would rather that we have those kind of systems in place should there be some kind of catastrophe, so that we don't have to go back and reopen all of those different avenues of funding and support.
What's campaigning been like? This is, I guess, your third campaign now.
Yeah.
And what's it been like in this with distancing, or people hesitant to answer the door if you come
Yeah.
knocking, or answer the phone? And are you still able to hear what they have to say to a candidate?
Well, if anything, I think people have been more vocal or have reached out to me more to tell me how they feel about things, because they know I probably will not be at the door. I haven't done any door knocking. We'll do some lit drops. Most of the work that I've been doing has been through mailing and phone calls. And surprisingly, I think people are kind of starved for conversation, because more people have been answering their phones than I expected, to tell you the truth. And it's been really great to hear from them, especially Fridley and the little bit of Spring Lake Park that I will add to my constituency, because those are the folks I'm not that familiar with, and they're not familiar with me. So you get people who are very chatty and want to know everything about you and everything you think about, and it's been very enjoyable that way.
And what are they saying? Are they talking mostly about COVID, or are they talking about some of these other topics, healthcare, education, or
I would say
advocacy?
mostly about COVID.
Right.
And how afraid they are about it, especially if you're speaking with elder folks and they haven't been out of the house, or they haven't seen their grandkids for a while. I would say, before school, if I caught a family with kids, they are, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? What is it going to look like? And as a teacher, of course, then they have a million questions for me. Folks, the uncertainty is really weighs heavy on people. We just don't know. Is there going to be inoculation against COVID? Is there going to be this? Is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? The uncertainty in Washington, D.C. is just really causing people some major angst. And so I don't have the answers, but I tell them I will listen and do the very best that I can, and they seem to be pretty satisfied with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mary, thank you for your time. We appreciate you coming today.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
Okay.